First in, last out. Motto of the Bridge Burners.
Hello, and welcome to Legendary Green Team's Malazan series. Welcome to episode 4 of the Memories of Ice series. I am Hurinfan, and I am joined today by BefuddledPanda.
Hello, everyone.
JasnahAsABoy.
Hello, fellow bridge burners.
And Ashaman.
Hi.
Ashaman and myself are Malazan veterans. BefuddledPanda and Jasnah are reading the series for the first time. Today, we are covering Memories of Ice chapters 21 through 25 and the book as a whole. Spoiler warning, everything up to these chapters is fair game for discussion. We will be doing our usual chapter-by-chapter format. Hit it, Ash.
Chapter 21. The armies depart Capistan, splitting into two groups on their way to Coral. Silver Fox is agitated with the disappearance of her mother. Cole and Murillo encounter the Knight of House Death, who escorts them to the Temple of Hood. Edkovian learns how to appreciate art and enjoys the company of Stunny and Gruntle. Whiskey Jack and Dujek resolve some questions about previous events. Aid is sent to Coltane.
I like that little, that part where they sent Coltane. It's just a nice little connection there.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your first note, since I know you have a lot today, Panda?
I know this will resonate with Jasnah as well. Okay, I'm probably going to butcher this name. Ormolagon. Ormolagon? Yeah. Ormolagon and Gumball are a great duo. And they're new characters for, Jasnah and myself. And I just love the scene. But there was something that was not that great about the scene. And I don't know if Erickson had this in his mind when he wrote this part. I think it was like the Toad was saying that the artist was softening the paint in his mouth, and that's why the artist is like saying loony things. But during the early 1900s, there were factories that employed women to paint watches with radium paint, because radium glows in the dark. And many of those women died of cancer and radiation poisoning. It is very, very gruesome to read about. But if you are curious about it, Radium Girls is a really good account of what happened in that time of history. Yeah. So even though the scene was really funny, I couldn't fully appreciate that scene because of the history of Radium Girls. So, and now all of you know about it too.
Woohoo! Lucky us.
Thank you for, letting us know that.
You're welcome.
I'm the better for knowing. Yeah, I'm glad we don't put lead in paint anymore, or at least most paints.
Yeah. I find it... I just think that's funny. It's like Ormolagan really likes the taste of lead, apparently.
It's supposed to be sweet, I think.
Yeah. That's why it was such a big problem with children playing with lead-based paint toys. They would... Yeah.
But are stupid.
Yeah, well...
Those are my new favorite characters. When I read that page, I had the feeling that you get when you have a really good first date. And I've never had that feeling about two characters before. And then they were not even in the rest of the novel, except like off camera being mentioned, which is nuts that he could make me fall in love with him. And they're like, it's 2 pages. And I was like sending screenshots of it to people, and I was like, oh my god, look at this. This is 21 chapters into this damn thing. I loved it so much.
Not on a humorous note, but this little bit is one thing that really made me appreciate the Malazan Empire a bit more, and it is one of the things that makes me lean Malazan in the grand scheme of things, because Ormolagan has to paint exactly what happened. It seems that the Malazans, or at least Kell and Ved, were really, really concerned about history as it happened. And they're not allowed to lie. They have to I don't know if this is widely circulated stuff, but it's at least stored somewhere.
In a wagon.
Yeah, it's just in a wagon. I don't know if he ships them back ever or not, but or Lazine has a gallery of portraits. Yeah, like history, very important. Remembering history correctly, very important. Guess who did this? Almost nobody. Most of the time when we do history on ancient civilizations, ancient meaning just, pre-industrial age, you have to be very careful when reading the sources because almost everybody was lying for some reason or another. For example, when Julius Caesar did his little genocide of the Gauls, his history is the primary one we use when looking at the period. And obviously, he was very motivated to make himself look good in those. So you have to do a lot of reading between the lines and guessing where the historian is lying in their statements. And it looks like Malazan people aren't allowed to do that. So, hey, it makes everyone else's job very much easier.
I interpreted that very differently.
Or
What-
at least this particular Malazan isn't allowed to do that because, as we know, Lysine will banish historians that tell too much of the truth if she doesn't like it. So
Yeah.
I don't think Duiker was, or Haboric was banished for telling the truth necessarily, as being just very critical of the Empire in like an editorial sense.
well, it's said by multiple characters who could all be wrong because it's Malazan that him saying she failed to assassinate Kalimved and that instead he ascended was like the big crime. But of course, we don't know what's in Lysine's head, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
don't really know.
also somewhat of a special case because if a lot of people become convinced Kalimved is alive, then boom, you got a civil war right there.
Oh yeah, I see.
I disagree with the Ashaman anyway because Gumbel already has lots of paintings of lies. Like I think one of the Marines said that there's paintings in there filled with Dujek here, Dujek there, Dujek everywhere.
I thought
He's
that
even.
was a joke.
I'm pretty sure that was a joke.
It's a joke, but I think it was an exaggeration of what like it's actually happening. So I think the artist is painting the truth for himself. As we know, even any artist will twist the truth to their own gains, and I think Gumbel is no different.
Okay, point of clarification. So Gumbel is the
Is the
artist.
toad?
Oh, whoops.
No, Gumbel is the toad,
Okay.
or Mulligan is the painter.
Okay.
Yeah. And when the Marines talk about it, they're saying a bunch of fancy. They're telling a bunch of saying that
I
he
thought it was
painted
a
a bunch
joke.
of untrue things. Yeah, because
Yeah.
one of them says, "We know that, sir," which is why my comrade here was teasing him. At Kovian, there's no such painting. Ormir Logan is the host's historian, since we ain't got any other, and he's charged on pain of death to keep things accurate, right down to the nose hairs.
So in
I just don't buy it.
yeah, so here's why I don't buy it. Here's why I'm agreeing with Hurin. Because Malazan is all about the idea that nobody is certain about what the objective truth is, and that you can't have certain knowledge. And that's why you have inconsistencies. Erickson has said, at least, and I think Esselmont has said, that they have inconsistencies between their books about the same events or characters, and they don't. They both could be true, right? So the painter is going to put his own truth on the canvas, and it can never be like 100%.
Well, yeah,
This definitely would happen.
I think it's more of
No.
a philosophical question at that point.
yeah, because I don't think anybody can have, well, any one person could have like a 100% accurate retelling of events. But for example, a big thing that ancient historians used to do was radically inflate the number of enemies they fought. So it's like, oh, we fought 100,000 people, when in reality it was probably like 40,000. I think Ormir Logan is charged with saying, no, it was 40,000. That's how many we fought. So like just basic historical stuff like that. So like you get all the facts that you can write, and then in the space between that, then I'm sure he, lets his personality see through a bit, because you can't be a historian and not do that.
I was just gonna say I think Gumbel's a demon.
Oh, I would buy
Yeah, I
that.
was wondering why everyone can hear the talking toad and not just the guy that eats paints. But one last thing on this scene. Idkovian forgot to look at Ormulgan's canvas.
Yeah.
And that's mentioned by the narrator, which, like, Steven Erickson doesn't put things in there for nothing. So what's that mean, Panda?
I mean, he was painting something really important, and Ecovian just didn't see it. Maybe he was actually painting Ecovian.
That's
well,
what I
I'm pretty sure he was painting Idkovian, but how did he paint Idkovian? What's the significance of Ikovian not looking at it?
I don't know. Ikovian doesn't want to see himself. I have no idea.
I don't either. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I noted that part, but I didn't spend too much brain power on it. I figured if it was significant enough, it will get revealed later.
I think Gumball is a talking toad and not a demon.
Oh, okay.
That's my theory.
You're both correct. I don't know.
It doesn't really matter. It could just be like someone's familiar, or like
Yeah.
like Moby was. Oh, but Moby was a soul taken. Maybe it's a soul kit taken.
They can't usually talk though, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's move on. So Whiskey Jack said that all of the old guard are not actually dead, including Dassam. So that's something I look forward to.
I noted that like he vanished, and I was like, wait, that means he's not dead.
According to Whiskey Jack.
Yeah, but Whiskey Jack is pretty trustworthy, so I'm gonna say Dassam is not dead. Also because Dassam keeps getting brought up like over and over and by multiple different people. So I'm just gonna say he is an important character. We're gonna see him later on. I don't think he's dead. I don't know what form he is in now after the supposed death of him, but
yeah, he's obviously an important dude.
We also get Taishren and Dujak's account of what happened to Pale, which I think is really cool.
I really like that part.
Yeah, it puts a lot of things into context because we learned that Nightchill probably killed the mage. Yeah.
Hey,
And
Coronas.
that was what prompted Taishren to kill Nightchill. And
wow.
Yeah. And also, Taishren basically fought Animander Rake alone. And
yeah.
I don't know.
Taishren's amazing.
Yeah, but after this, after I read this book, Taishren, bamf. He's so cool. He's just a human. Like that's all he is. He's just a guy who just got really good at magic. He's not the son of darkness. Hasn't existed for 300,000 years.
Let's see a show of hands. After book 1, who hated Taishren?
The first time? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, who still hates
raising our
Taishren?
hands.
Who still hates Taishren?
I'm like,
I didn't think so.
I'm like, eh. So the whole thing about Taishren is, like we noted in Gardens that we got some context. Like he was somebody who was put in the wrong role, and it wasn't necessarily that he just had an agenda against the bridge burners, but at that time it was still ambiguous. Like maybe not. I was a bit more convinced that he did have his own agenda, but in this case, I'm like, do I trust Dudek's account of what happened? I still I don't know. But then later on, the events with Taishren saving blah blah blah, then I'm like, okay, fine. He's good now in my book, except very flawed person, very flawed strategy.
Yeah, Whiskey Jack introduced the idea of Dujek maybe not being completely trustworthy. Gave us a little bit of doubt, right?
Right.
So yeah, and that leads into what I was gonna say. So I'm not convinced I hate Taishren anymore, but I'm also not convinced of this entire narrative because the safest place for all the bridge burners was underneath in the tunnel underneath Pale. Really? I don't know.
Well, above in the battlefield, that's not a good place either because the entire Second Army was destroyed there, basically.
Yeah.
So I think he probably just made a guess and then he's just wrong,
Maybe.
A very fatal error.
Yeah.
I first began to suspect that Taishren wasn't the mustache twirler that you're initially think he is. So at some point in Gardens, when I realized what kind of story it was, but I had no fuel for that. And then Deadhouse Gates, you get Taishren as Dujak's shaved knuckle in the hole. And that kind of made me go, well, maybe he's and then seeing the way that Cam portrays him in other books, I was like, maybe they just have a different view of this character. And then finally you get to this one and I'm like, all right, maybe he's not a bad guy.
Well, he was the shaved knuckle on the hole, and at the same time, he used the knife in their back, right?
Yeah, that's true. We did get that earlier in the book.
So I mean, it's you're smart to be wary and too trusting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't fully trust him yet. And now he's going to be Quick Ben's boss. I mean, that's a later chapter, but oof.
Yeah, who do you think is more powerful, Quick Ben or Taishran?
I think Taishran in terms of just like raw muscle, but Quick Ben in terms of just sheer magical flexibility and
And
ingenuity.
strategy.
And yeah.
Funny.
I agree.
Speaking of Quick Ben pulls a Krupp move and speaks his thoughts freely in Krupp fashion. That was funny.
To Krupp, and then Krupp's like, I see what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
We also get to meet an old friend again. The
Night of Death.
the Night of High Host Death. Yeah, that's Bowden. That's not really a secret or anything.
Well, so between me and Yasna,
Oh,
like
yeah, I saw the
trying to
conversation.
figure it out, right? I was like, oh, well, it's the one Gidrith soldier
Yeah,
that Ikonia noted
it was both of
pacing.
them. Yeah.
And then Yasna's like, but it's Bowden. And finally we put it together that it is Bowden as a Gidrith soldier. that is
Which
the Night of Death.
which the only way that fit together was realizing that Deadhouse Gates is not perfectly in sync timeline-wise with Memories of Ice.
Yeah,
Oh.
timelines are probably the biggest technical thing Erickson gets wrong, and you'll see later on he doesn't include dates anymore.
Like, unless Hood has a TARDIS or like some kind of time control, there's no way.
Time moves differently on Seven Cities, let's say. Very Jeremy Bearimy.
I love that part because it gave a little bit more insight into the motivations of Bowden. And I mean, he's a deeply, deeply, deeply flawed guy. He didn't do it. You could make the argument that he didn't do right, and I think he didn't, but he tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Just
think
like
I pretty much already had that from Deadhouse Gates, though.
yeah, both of his traveling companions, all that trio, just very tragic.
Yeah. That does bring up, you know what? I meant to read Erickson's essay about death before this episode, but alas, I have not. So I won't have his wisdom in my brain in this episode. But afterwards, I will go read it. But it's kind of, I had this qualm in Gardens where people died, but not really. And then it kind of just is part of this world and his narrative that death isn't so final. And I was thinking about it because I was a bit annoyed by that because the stakes just didn't seem as high if there was no finality. Is that a word?
Finality.
Yeah, finality. I don't know.
Sounds right.
But when I was thinking more about it, like if you had the power, this is your world, you're the creator. If you had the power to break the rules of reality, which is what fantasy does a lot of the times,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you choose to break the rules of death? And when I look at it in that lens, and I'm like, fine, okay. Anyway, so.
Yeah, death isn't necessarily final, but it always is meaningful. That's
I agree with.
yeah. It's
But
always
I totally get why people would feel like, hey, like this character, he's dead, but like we're probably going to see them again, so it doesn't. I totally get those feelings, But I agree. There's always some sort of
Significant.
significance and consequence to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like Bowden's the same as he was before he died. He's a tool in Hood's hand. He doesn't remember his life. He's, can't let go of his swords.
He was a tool before, right? He was a tool of Tavor. So he also hasn't found his freedom either. Maybe he'll get his freedom later. I don't know.
Oh, do you guys think it was indeed merciful for Hood to erase Bowden's memory? I think probably yes, because goddamn, those events were so tragic and would be permanently scarring for definitely me at least. But what do you guys think?
I'm a little torn. I don't know if it's like actual mercy or that it's easier for Hood to have him do what Hood wants if he didn't have those memories.
We see a lot of that in this book, right? Taking away people's grief and taking away people's memories.
Yeah.
And you know, for in this book at least, it's kind of seen as a merciful uh,
Right.
act, and I think there's definitely an important conversation to be had about that
Hmm.
because, like, we're only everybody is the amalgamation of their experiences, shared and personal, right?
Hmm.
And to take that away would, you know, you'd cease to be yourself, right? But at
Yeah,
the
it
same
changes your
time,
identity.
exactly. And at the same time, if you take that away, then you're no longer yourself. Like what happened to an Aster, right?
Hmm.
I think there's one case where it's nearly unambiguously good, and that's the Jagged Child,
Mm,
because they just got rid of her hundreds of thousands of years of pure suffering, and now she
right.
can just kind of like continue where she left off without those scars.
Hmm.
Mm. Okay, this is from Paran. I love this one. I can examine myself, my every feeling, until the abyss swallows the world, yet come no closer to mastery of those emotions within me. They are not static things, nor are they immune to the outside world, to what others say or don't say, and so they are in constant flux.
I love
This
it.
one's very personal, and I relate so much. It's like you could understand why you're feeling something. It doesn't change the way you feel, right?
Hmm.
There's definitely a very necessary part to introspection, and I think everyone needs to do it. But there is also such a thing as too much. At some point, it just becomes navel gazing and overindulgent, and at some point, it's time to stop thinking and just start doing.
I've heard that criticism of Malazan, the series, that it's a lot of navel gazing.
Do you agree?
It, it might be fair.
I think there's some legitimate criticism there, or at least comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a really good video recently by AP about criticism versus complaints.
Complaints.
Yeah, and it was really good.
It was.
And I think that would fall into the complaint because personally, I love that stuff, and that's part of why I like Cartoonist so much. That's why I read the series. But for other people, like, oh, get back to the fighting, or I want to see more lasers and dinosaurs.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to get out of what you're reading. Yeah.
Like to me, the lasers and dinosaurs and fighting is only important because of the philosophy and the emotions and all that stuff. So
Sometimes I just want candy, brain candy.
I do like how in the midst of all the philosophizing and deep heavy themes, there's also just such goofy stuff.
Yeah.
Like especially the Segula
Talking
in this
frogs.
book. Well, yeah, the talking frogs, but especially the Segula because they send 3 people out, and that counts as an army, and not even their best people. One of their really good guys, another one of their pretty good guys, and then like a guy who's just finished high school.
Three little shy guys.
Yeah,
and it's not just like an army; it's like the punitive army of the
Yeah.
Segula. It's like super like self-important. Like calling the killing of that mother the 33rd Jaghut War or whatever it was.
Oh my
Mm.
god.
Ugh.
Yeah, so you want to talk about quotes?
Sure. I have two. One's from Krupp. Krupp's talking crap to Quickbin because Quickbin just made fun of him. Nonsense, wizard! Hold to your unassailable self-confidence. Some might well call it megalomania, but not Krupp, for he too is in possession of unassailable self-confidence, such as only mortals are capable of, and then rightfully, but a mere handful the world over. You've singular company, Krupp assures you. And yeah, these two are very self-confident. They are also megalomaniacs. So,
Um, one thing, I sort of have a different view of Krupp just now. I think his demeanor and stuff is an act that's meant to provide people some enjoyment or distraction from their worries. I think it's very deliberate that as soon as things are looking really dark, Krupp appears at his most goofy, and it provides some humor so that they don't have to spend all their times wallowing in the awfulness.
but even Krupp knows when not to do that. The
Yes.
gathering of the Talani Mass, he treated that
Yeah.
with somber.
Hmm.
Is that part of the sleight of hand that
Yeah.
Erickson?
Yeah, it's important to have a heel, somebody who doesn't mind being the brunt
Butt
of the
of all
jokes, right?
jokes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it serves a double purpose, as many things in Malazan do that Erickson writes, because it also disguises sometimes, maybe not with Quickbin, because Quickbin kind of knows Krup's game, but it for some people it disguises Krup's efficacy because he doesn't want to appear efficacious if he can help it.
It's also a good way of weeding out who are the perceptive ones.
You had a second quote?
I do. It's from a Kovian. He says, cities and governments are but the flowering head of a plant whose stalk is the commonalty, and it is the commonalty whose roots are within the earth, drawing the necessary sustenance that maintains the flower, which is beautiful by itself. But then he goes on, the Tenescaurisur is the domain's surviving commonalty, people torn from their land, from their villages, their homes, their farms. All food production has ceased, and in its place has arisen the horror of cannibalism. The countryside before us is indeed raised, but not in answer to us. It has been a wasteland for some time, sir. Thus, while the flower still blazes in its color, it is in fact already dead.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
I think there's a lot of
And sad.
people that can underestimate just how many people we needed to be farmers before the industrial age. It was like something like 90% of people or something crazy like that who had to be living in the country and farming so that, they could support the 10 people living in the cities, 10% of people living in the cities. It's wild. And also, cities weren't a place usually of positive growth. They always had to have people from the country moving in there so they could actually maintain or grow their population.
This is probably an inappropriate tonal shift. But Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Do you remember when King Arthur is talking to the peasants? They're like,
I'm
we
being
didn't vote
impressed.
for you.
Authority
I
arises
make
from
a
the consent of the
collective.
coven.
Moist women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government.
Such a great
Yeah.
scene.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a tangent. Sorry.
Do you have quotes, Panda?
Yeah, speaking of stupid government, Cole made an observation, and the stupid mask council. I just want to punch all of them in the face. Except for
Especially
maybe
Shadow Throne, right?
Yes. So he notes, rumor was political rivalries had reached a volatile state. Now that the Mass Council was free of the presence of powerful allies, free as well of a royal presence who traditionally provided a leveling influence on their excesses, the future of Capistan was not a promising one. And this part, it was impactful for me because of how well Erickson was able to put into words things that have happened in this world so many times where disaster happens, whether it's genocide, whether it's whatever else, even natural disasters, and it leaves a gap. And what fills that gap isn't, compassion and trying to unite the people for good. It's selfishness and greed and power hunger. Ugh, yeah.
Politics has an excellent way of weeding out people with principles. And note that there were 2 governing bodies of Capistan prior to the attack, and there was one that cared about its citizens. Can you guess which one died?
Yeah.
Stupid Cruel. Why didn't he save Prince Delarkin?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, because he wasn't there. And Cruel's the only bit of duty what it did because of Kefal, right?
Yes, that's true. It was the Vargas gods, yeah.
Is this the chapter where we learn that Rath Tog and Rath Vandre are lovers that never touch?
Yeah.
Use your imagination.
Use your
It might be a
imagination.
later chapter, but yes, that was very touching. Yes.
No, it wasn't touching.
Sorry.
I knew you were gonna say that. I almost said it for you.
Okay. I walked into that one.
Any questions?
So it was said that the bridge burners bumped into an agent of the crippled god back in Darujistan, a sickly artisan.
Monog.
Yeah. Remember, is the guy
that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking back in Deadhouse Gates, who they would have, not Deadhouse Gates, Gardens, who they would have met. So
We see him later in this book too.
Yeah, the epilogue.
So that
Yeah.
is him.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
And weirdly, somehow 10 Very Big Books thought that it was the crippled god, and then they mentioned it to Erickson and he didn't correct them. And I was like, no, there's no way that's not Monarch. It
Mm,
absolutely is.
okay.
Yeah, it's it's my luck.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Because I
Because
was
he's like,
trying to.
oh, I have this treasure buried. That's the counsels he got for the Torques. And he couldn't bring
At
it
the
back because he
column?
was like dragging himself by his
Because he's
upper body.
paralyzed.
Right.
Thanks to the crippled god.
Like, kudos to him for making it all the way to Jerusalem with
I
only his
wondered-
hands.
Yeah,
I
poor
wondered
guy.
what happened to that guy because like we didn't hear anything else about him, but now I know. Okay.
So this is way ahead of the game now, but not like I'm gonna forget if I wait for the epilogue. Do you think that he is the beggar of the crippled god? The Hood mentioned in the last section we read that there's like the beggar, the fool, and something else.
I think he probably is.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That
I never thought about it, but yeah, good catch.
Okay, so we already talked about Desem. Like he's not dead.
What do you
Okay.
think?
Meh.
That's what you said to me last time I said he wasn't dead, but now I'm pretty sure you're just messing with us.
You guys probably think Talk the Elder is still alive too.
Of course he is. He's in the old guard.
Switching gears here. Paran said, "With my blessing to the new Destriant,"
Yeah, that was cool.
and the Destriant was
Destriant.
like, Destriant. Okay,
I'm never going to say
Destriant.
it that way. Erickson is wrong about the pronunciation of that.
In a recent
Dude.
interview, he said Destriant. And AP's like,
Ah!
oh, fine, whatever.
Like 20 times. And I'm like, dude, you phonetically wrote it like Destrian, Gestrier. So it's Destriant.
Yes.
Like, you cannot do that. You can't do that to me.
Okay, the D word. And she felt it, right? Like she.
He felt the D.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. We've gone off the rails here. I just think that there would be something that comes out of it. I don't think that it's just going to be nothing. So I'm going to keep my eye out on this person, this character that starts with a D. Because we don't know this person's name, do we?
I think we do, but
Oh, okay.
we just knew her as the recruit, right?
Not
Yeah.
the. Oh yeah, yeah. This. Yeah. No, I was thinking of the shield anvil. We do also know the name of the shield anvil, I believe.
Does it start with an S? Probably. Whatever. Anyway,
Who cares?
Destriant's
move
fine.
on.
Chapter 22 then? Excellent. Chapter 22. The seer makes plans for defending Coral. Contact is lost with Moonspawn. Corporal Broach practices his dentistry. Preparations are made for the MIBE.
That's a short one.
Yeah?
Very short. Poor Mancy. Kovian did him wrong.
Man, I just shudder to think what Corporal Broach's dentistry operations must look like. Because I'm convinced that the only people who legitimately become dentists are sociopaths anyways, who just enjoy inflicting pain on others, but
Okay,
this
I
must be
do
really
kn-
bad.
I do have at least a good friend who is a dentist, and I do not think he's a sociopath.
Yeah, because he channels it through his work.
Okay,
He just
but
takes all of his violent urges and then expresses them in a somewhat healthy way.
So this chapter had a lot of Cole and Murillo and Mybe.
Yeah.
And I love that we learned that Cole might have a daughter and
Mhm.
their little conversation between Murillo and Cole. And at the end, Murillo says something very true, but kind of hurtful. And Cole says, and you call yourself a friend. And Murillo said, I do.
Yep.
It was so good.
I don't think we know that it's a girl. At
Oh,
least
okay.
I just remember it being a child.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to hear that you shouldn't be in your child's life, I would imagine.
At least not directly.
Yeah, no, it's like 100% right. Cole, no way he is mentally sound enough. He's been sober for 6 months. That's like Merle said, that's nothing. But
He's so close to falling back into that abyss, which is
Yep.
what the chapter was about.
Yeah.
but he can be a benefactor. So
And I liked the callback to the poem at the beginning of the chapter too. That was really cool.
The poem at the beginning of the chapter.
It's about a ant on a room with the
Oh,
lip of
right,
the
right.
glass and spider at the bottom. And he said
Mhm.
that Cole was on the verge of the abyss, but it was also for the same of the Demibe.
Mm-hmm. The Panyan Seer made his Christmas wish list in this one. I want Brood's hammer, the Malazans annihilated, groveling Barghest gods. Oh, and bring me a Kovian alive, please.
And a Coke.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how just out of touch of reality he seems.
Yeah.
And also, I really didn't take the Defenses of Coral seriously when I first read it around. It was just like, oh yeah, there's like Brood, there's Animander, there's Moonspawn, there's the Malazans. No way you can survive against that, right? Like, it's not even gonna be close. But those Condors really evened the odds.
And they
Don't
could
forget they can
change them
change them
all.
all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we already
Oh.
knew about those.
I have things to say later. Just, yeah. Anyway. But we did get to see Septarch Otentha. Not all of these Panyan followers are terrible.
Hmm.
And Talk showing concern for his well-being was just very nice touch.
Something about Talk that instills loyalty in everybody. I love the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important to remember that even in the worst regimes, they're just composed of people, and those people aren't that different fundamentally from everyone else. Chapter 23. The Bridgeburners investigate a dead city. Dujek and Whiskey Jack share one last meal. An imploded Teist Edur is found, and Perron visits Draconis. The Alliance becomes strained when Brood learns of the Malazan's deception. The remaining Malazans make haste towards Coral. Calor rides to join Whiskey Jack, Envy makes it to land, and the Bridgeburners take first blood.
Kieran?
How do you what do you have any thoughts about the imploded Teist Edur?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Did Rake do it?
Interesting thought. Well,
But
they
if-
decided that had to have been a high priest of Ruse, which is the
Right.
ward of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And the Thai standee probably don't have those. Because they're
Oh,
all
no.
probably priests of other things.
It seems they use primarily a curled Ghislaine.
Yeah, have we seen Teist use non-curled Ghislaine?
Nope.
Don't think so.
Well, don't they have access? Some of them have access to the Warren of Dragons, but that's it. It's just those two.
Yeah.
Like, sort of. I don't think they use it directly. I think it's just like insofar as they are soul taken, they like their transformation sequence probably makes use of Starville Dunneling.
So
Yes.
there's like 6 Thai standee that we've met that can mess with the Dragon Warren, basically. Then
Seems
All
like
I know is that this Teist Edur did not commit suicide. So somebody killed this person, and that's it. Who's the path of the sea captain? Like, I guess who do we know is wait.
Admiral
no.
Knock. You guessed it.
I don't know who that is.
We have seen some sea captains, and
Well, there's
they found the body in the tides, right?
Yeah.
So there is the Salanda where there is another Teist Edur character.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Corpse,
the
yeah.
Mm.
So maybe that. But then why would the body be showing up here now? Or has this body been there for a really long time? No, because I don't know.
yeah.
Everyone?
I would be incredibly
That's
impressed if you guys managed to make anything sensible out of this.
Yeah,
Such a
there's
tease.
absolutely no way. Just teasing.
Pooh head.
I like how Dujik and Whiskey Jack just kind of know, but are pretending to be in denial for each other that one of them is going to die.
So share one last meal with me.
Yeah.
Mm,
And
yeah.
there's some pretty good misdirection because I was thinking it would almost certainly be Dujek, right?
I
Me
absolutely
too.
thought that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Nope.
thought it would be Whiskey Jack. I mean, the leg, right?
Well,
The leg.
yeah. Okay, I had asked this, like, why the heck did Whiskey Jack? He had so many opportunities to have his leg properly healed, but he did not. And Ashmont, you had an answer. Go ahead.
I have more of an answer now. I think it's a metaphor.
Okay.
I think that's
Oh.
his primary use. I think his leg represents the pressures of command just getting to him. And then when he gets betrayed, it just kind of all goes out.
Hmm.
On the literal level, I think it's part of his attempt to make everyone think that he is fine.
Yeah.
So if he let himself slip just a bit, he thinks that he's just gonna fall apart. Can't admit like even a tiny bit of weakness, because otherwise it's like maybe it'll all come out.
I said this in our chats, but I see my father in there because my father will absolutely refuse to go to see the doctor unless like he cut off a finger or something. And that's what his father was like. And I think that
Yeah.
there's a tendency for a lot of men just to shake it off.
But the thing about Whiskey Jack is when he was having the headaches, right? Like Mallet, he let Mallet help with those.
Good point.
So
And like for Whiskey Jack at least, Denul healers don't cost money. Unlike doctors in
and he
world.
had Brood too,
Yeah,
right?
Brood
Like
offered.
once we find out that Brood is able to heal. So that's like one of my qualms about this book is that part to me didn't fit as well with the character and the situation because like him being such a noble and dutiful commander would have foreseen and taken better care of his leg. Anyway, so that's a little bit of a tangent. But yes, back to Dujek and Whiskey Jack.
I don't have much to say on that front anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. The Mott Irregulars.
Yeah.
What a fun bunch.
Right.
And just
Especially the
Bull
Bull
brothers.
brothers.
yes. There's not two of them. There's what, 30?
Yeah, and one sister.
Uh-huh.
It was worse than the rest of them.
Did you notice that every time one of them claimed to be a high marshal, was a different guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I have this in a later chapter as like, what are they all high marshals?
Probably.
I think it's just like an entirely unorganized group, and they just pretend to have a commander.
Yeah. I mean, they're the irregulars, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I just appreciate this humor. It is potty humor, but like literal potty humor where he steals the dung.
It's like a war over the dung of the Ribby.
Oh my gosh.
He's like
They got
stuck
the
on the
table.
shirt and runs away. That's so funny.
Yeah, and
Table with no
they're the
legs.
ones. They're the ones that are keeping the table around.
Yeah.
We also got a huge dump of info about
Dump.
Shadow. Oh, back to the poop jokes. About Shadow and Mianis and the
Aaron goes to a
Door
lot of places, right?
and Dragnapur and darkness and chaos and
Yeah, that
all
was
that
really cool.
stuff.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cool.
I even argued in the Deadhouse Gates episode that Mianis was the warren that Shadow Throne presided over, and Huron was like, "Why would you say that?" Da 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 da, and like shut me down. And then here we are. It's coming up again.
Mianis and Shadow are linked.
Right. I
Yeah.
know that.
The Shadow Warren is super complicated, as I've said before.
Super duper complicated.
When does it become not as complicated in your mind?
Never.
I
Oh,
didn't think it would.
Book. It becomes less complicated, I think.
I think you probably have the tools to put it together. Maybe like book 7.
Jeez, I was expecting 5.
But Asher and Modern I still don't know a lot.
Yeah.
The reason I was expecting 5, by the way, is because it seems clear to me that the Tysty Door are linked to Midnight Tides based on this chapter.
yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, what did you think of all this info and chaos and how Dragnapur was supposed to be used to like prevent chaos from overcoming Mother Darkness, but it might not be working the way it's supposed to, and all this stuff.
And he went to Driftavali, right? That island, right? We've
Did
seen
he
that before.
actually go there?
No, no,
kinda.
the Shadow Throne told him about what was happening on it.
Yeah, yeah.
The actual Shadow Throne, not
It's
the
not
fake
Shadow
ass
Throne.
Shadow
Mhm.
Throne.
Right.
All I'm gonna say is cool info, cool world building, and I'm just gonna see what else happens because trying to decipher it all, I'm just like, I don't know. But I see the words, where this new emperor of the Edur, this tyrant of pain, this deliverer of midnight tides.
Hmm.
Nice tease.
Yep.
So
So
Didn't it also say he's like the king of 1,000 deaths or something like that?
Something, I don't know. Oh, yes. Led by the one who has been slain 100 times.
Hmm.
I am convinced that Animander Rake is responsible for fragmenting the Warren of Shadow.
Okay.
Well, we
I
already
don't know. Huh?
We already know part of why it's fragmented.
Do we?
Well, we get the answer from Gothos. When Ikariam learned that Gothos was in the Azath house, he made an assault on it, and in so doing, damaged the Warren.
Okay.
But I guess I didn't realize that was the Warren of Shadow.
Yeah,
Because nobody.
it's the one that Tremorlor is holding down.
Right, but I've had no indication that that is linked to the fragmented Warren of Shadow until you just said that.
Yeah, it's the only Warren we know of that's shattered.
I like this. So he talks to Draconis again, Perrin, and I think his final words were not his final words, but he says, "Draconis, he graded, you have made a very unpleasant sword."
Yes,
I like that line.
Elder gods, it seemed, host to.
Yes.
What is it? Are host to a variety of unpleasantries or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they are very cruel.
Darn, darn, darn.
I see what you did there. The bridge burners finding the trenches the Panions were going to use to do their sneak attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting that, and that was a really fun, cool development. Yeah.
I really like the parts where the bridge burners are fighting. It's really fun to read.
Yeah, I don't like reading about the parts where they're dying.
Spindle and Shake are hilarious.
Yeah, we get a few more bridge burner characters in these chapters. That was fun.
I was gagging while laughing at the toes description.
Toes.
I sent that to my sister and like multiple other people to be like, look, there's no plot spoilers. This is why you need to read Malazan. Here you go. Bam.
Did that help? Did they want to read it after that?
Well, one of my sisters thought it was hilarious. So at least one of them. See, the thing about Erickson's jokes are he uses so many different characters with so many differences of humor that you never know what's going to land with who.
That is true. That is very true.
I like to imagine the toeless ghosts who have a hard time walking.
That's the part I was laughing at as I was gagging about the
Oh my goodness.
The necromancers in these books so far are all both hilarious and disgusting.
As expected, I guess.
The Bull brothers don't like necromancers.
that brings up something that comes up later. When the Brooch and Buckalane ask, well, what do we do when we meet the Bull brothers? He's like, just make sure to dress nice. Yeah, wear your best. There's this. Oh wait, sorry. Before that, we were talking about bridge burners. The lungs ritual. Speaking of toes, the ritual he did that flooded that mage's lungs and made him like vomit up water and kept the water inside his lungs. Oh my god, that was the most brutal and efficacious use of magic I've read in a while.
That entire scene, the orchestration, the teamwork between all the bridge burners, it was brilliant. I really loved it.
You get a sense why they're so widely known and feared.
Centuries-old immortal warlord apparently born yesterday. How did Kaladin Brood believe the most unconvincing gambit ever from Kalor? That was so weak.
I don't think he thought that Kalor would betray. Whiskey check.
Yeah, I think that's just it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, his logic was sound. I mean, Kalor was already playing off the idea that Kalor was already, or not Kalor, but that Kaladin was already regretting his actions. So
yeah, and also we don't know, but I'm pretty sure Kalor has been with Kaladin for a significant amount of time.
Yeah,
but hasn't he learned that he's like not trustworthy in that time?
No, because remember in Kalor's inner monologue, he's like he would wait for like centuries at a time before making a move.
Yeah, patience is not a virtue for Kalor.
It is, yeah.
No, patience is just... There was a character, I can't remember who it was. Was it Getho? who told
Oh, yeah,
Keller
yeah. You're the
exception that
exception to
patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
I got one more note. I really, really, really enjoyed this chapter that we get the exact conversation that was alluded to in Gardens of the Moon.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, between Kaladin and Kalor.
You never learn.
Nope.
And he doesn't.
Eric, so I'm moving down into quotes. Erickson gives a nod to Fables, where he says, some dim-witted farm boy stumbling on a magic sword. Basically meaning that this is not that. Nope. And it just made me think of, Arthurian legends and Sword in the Stone. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for quotes here.
Got one. It's with Whiskey Jack and Humbrol Tor. Meeting the white-faced clans of the Barghast is one such reward. Diversity is worth celebrating, Humbrol Tor, for it is the birthplace of wisdom. Words to live by.
I really like that because if you have a homogenized group of people, then usually they will share a lot of the same viewpoints, and if you have a lot of the same viewpoints, then you're probably missing something.
Mm-hmm.
And you're losing for a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's 4 of us. Some of us are veterans, some of us are first-timers, some of us are male and female, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Canadian, not Canadian.
Yeah, that's the important one.
White, not white.
Yes.
Did anybody else have quotes?
Me. So for Stani, why can't I have normal friends? Ones without tiger stripes and cat eyes. Ones without 100,000 souls riding their backs. Here comes a writer from that other lagging company. Maybe he's normal. Hood knows. He's dressed like a farmer and looks inbred enough to manage only simple sentences. A perfect man. Hey, you! No, what are you hesitating for? Come to us then, please.
That's funny.
Why can't my friends be normal?
And then, of course, she doesn't really want that. She loves her
No.
friends.
Normal is pretty boring, or can be.
I want a friend with cat stripes and cat eyes.
Do you? I thought you didn't like cats.
I don't, but tigers are cool.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
We'll
much
go to
of a
enough
difference
like
there,
body
yeah.
modification conventions and anime conventions, you'll find one.
Those people are weird.
Okay.
That's funny.
I
considering the quote.
want normal cat-eyed, cat-striped people.
I would like to note that I am fully supportive of people who like both anime and body modification. I am no bigot.
No comment.
Oh my goodness.
Especially in terms of Bonnie Bay.
I mean, I have some very minor body modifications, so obviously I'm not
Same.
against it.
I have lost my train of thought.
Oh yeah, is this you guys wanted to talk about the humor where Hedge and Deterin and Krupp and Hitan are
Okay, so the humor. Yeah, so this is something that I mentioned in our DMs that I just didn't really like the humor from surrounding Datoran and Hitan. And I also think that it's made worse by the contrast of Stani and the dying men getting raped. So Datoran is like dragging Trots, or no, Hedge, dragging Hedge into her tent. And he's like clawing, and people are just like, ha 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 ha. And Hitan is just very aggressive. Like, it just didn't land for me, the humor. It felt like, this is probably going to be controversial, I felt like the jokes undermined a little bit Erickson's credibility that he built up with me for how he handles rape and like sexual advances.
So there's a couple things here. I think I think I would treat Heaton differently than I would treat Datoran and Hedge, because and here's why. Based on what Blend, I believe, says about them, they are like in a dom sub relationship where that's part of the play. So that is not, like that's their kink. And I mean, I don't know if they have the safe words or if that's a thing in the Malazan world, right? But like, they're soldiers, they're camping out all the time. They don't get to just like have a house where they only do that in private, It all happens in front of their comrades. So that is a little different than the sexual aggression of Hitan.
Okay, that's fair.
And then with Hitan, I mean, I understand not finding the jokes with Hitan funny. And yeah, it does approach essay stuff. And I think what Erickson's trying to do, and I could be wrong, so you guys can yell at me if I'm wrong. I think what he's trying to do is respond to the tropes in like a lot of swords and sorcery and military fantasy of the casualization of that stuff when it's men doing it to women and like turning it around and like trying to subvert that. But I don't know. That's how I read it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I agree, Asna. I think that's exactly what it was, and it was just him reversing the genders of what you normally see. But my problem with that is that, like, that kind of, for me personally, I know a lot of people are into that, and, you know, of course, consent's important. But if I were at a bar and my friend was being that aggressive towards a woman, I'd be like, hey, dial it back, you're being creepy as hell.
But I don't think Erickson would disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, whether it's a man or a woman.
I think it's also because of the way that other characters they're viewing the situation, right? And they think it's funny. So it's almost like condoning it rather than having any perspective that's like either confronts her about it or says anything that's different, that provides a different perspective. And there's also a part at the end with Tool where like Tool gets smitten.
Oh, by
like,
Hitan.
I was like, what?
Tool hasn't been laid in 300,000 years.
Okay.
He hasn't been. Yeah, I don't think he's been able to experience any sexual pleasure in that long, too. So,
Maybe that is
him.
like, okay, the first one that shows interest, maybe, but
I agree with you, Panda, as well. Especially since, as a society, we kind of ignore or downplay or make joke out of men being raped. And yeah, it would be nice if it was addressed, even though it's not really. But I think in both cases, of course, the participant was willing, so that does change it a bit too.
Yeah, I think it's also just like because the characters are portrayed as somehow willing, like whether it's explicit or no, but okay,
So arguably with Krupp, he does admit to being willing eventually, but like knowing whether that's coercion or not. And then it reverses and he ends up taking more out of her than she wants to give.
Right.
And he
Which,
becomes,
by the
That's pretty
way,
funny.
in my mind, they're just wrestling, like whether it's like sumo wrestling or whatever, but they're just wrestling because I cannot even. No, I don't want to think the other stuff.
Well, canonically, they're both very greasy people.
but here's where it gets more problematic, because Tool and Krupp are obviously willing, but like Kovian, even though he wanted it, he had vows of celibacy, and she was like, "I don't care, I'm gonna get you."
Right.
And so like that, and that's of course in the previous episode, but
right.
Yeah, that bothered me.
But it just compounds, it's like almost the person is not respecting somebody's boundaries. They're not actually listening, and they're just like bulldozing. That's really what I do not find funny.
Yeah, and I can see why that would bother you, but I'll say one more thing, and again, crucify me if you guys want to, but I think also he might be trying to show that societies with different cultural values view the concept of consent like completely differently. Like Hitan's a Barghast, and she's from this like tribal society that like grins at death and like are super blunt and won't say yes. Is it that they won't say yes to anything or won't say no to anything? I forget when Perron's talking to.
They won't say yes. So
yeah.
Right.
You can get them to say yes by.
You have to get them to say no to the opposite. Like, so they're like a completely alien culture to like American culture today or Japanese culture today.
Sure.
Or whatever.
That's fair.
Yeah, I have a note about that. So I studied Japanese culture in college, and I was learning 10th century poetry, and one of the things that our teacher taught us that like kind of blew my mind was the idea of how to engage sexual contact, because people in that time, I mean, they weren't prudish. They slept with everybody, including married and unmarried women and men. But it was, according to the gender norms at the time, it was just very normal for women to pretend, according to even their own writings, to pretend not to be interested, and that they were kind of expected to, say, "Oh, I'm not really interested. I'm not really interested," but
Mm.
at the same time playing this game where, and like in the we like to think that like what we believe and what we do and our cultural norms are the absolute truth, and it's just not the case.
I would like to say one thing that I'm pretty sure will be both new and maybe a hot take. I am a firm believer in nothing being out of bounds for humor. I think that humor is a very important. Uh, it's just very important for us as humans to do and to be able to joke about things. Um, Obviously, there's bad taste jokes out there. That's if a joke's not funny, it's not funny. If it makes people feel bad, then it didn't serve its purpose as a joke. It's a bad joke. But I even linked a article with Jasnah about a comedy show that was featuring survivors of rape and sexual assault, who feature in their routines jokes about rape and sexual assault, specifically usually theirs, because they find it very cathartic, and it's a way to talk about things in a way that's not like super heavy, because first of all, rape and sexual assault not talked about enough in society, but also
As it makes people uncomfortable.
yeah, it makes people uncomfortable. But they're important conversations to have, and it's really important to remove stigma around having conversations like that. And I think being able to make jokes about that also helps. And also, I think Hedge and Deterin are a good example of a what's called a no until yes couple. Or yes until no couple. That's it. A yes until no
Okay.
couple, because you just some people just like having implied consent, and until someone says no, then everything is okay. And since they've known each other for I don't know 20 years, that makes sense to me. I'm very willing to read into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more that how I react to the joke says more about myself than necessarily like
Yeah.
Erickson.
And there's nothing wrong with having not finding jokes funny. That's a
That
perfectly
was
fine
what I
thing
was
to do.
about to say, as I was
Yeah.
about to agree with Ashaman, but then also say that, it's totally fine for anybody to say, I don't find this kind of humor funny. And
For any reason.
you're not wrong. Yeah, for any reason. And you're not wrong for saying it. No matter who you are, or or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitan and
Cool.
Krupp, I just kind of think of it as a Krupp is. I think if anybody seriously said no to Hitan, no, I'm putting a stop to this. This is not going to happen. I think she would back off. And also, the power dynamic between Hitan and the people she's sexually advancing, she's usually approaching people that are higher up in the hierarchy. Like Itkovian, he was a commander of a mercenary company of several thousand. If he really wanted her
Harlow?
away, Harlow probably an exception, yeah. But Harlow was also very enthusiastically consenting there.
Yeah, he was. Yes, he was.
Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on the topic.
Thank you for indulging me in this one.
Thank you for letting us indulge you.
I really appreciate that we're able to have conversations like this, and people
Yeah,
are allowed
me
to
too.
have different opinions. And I don't think we think less of each other for having different opinions on these difficult subjects.
I hope we just don't
That's-
catch too much.
So
If-
far, that hasn't been much of a problem, has it?
So far, yeah. I don't think.
I would imagine most people who read Malazan probably are more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt than a lot more people, and to be more charitable in their interpretation of people's arguments.
I
That's
hope
just me.
so.
I like Discord's Discord server a lot for that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Oh, so in this chapter, we got I finally was able to see the lead up to Calor's betrayal. Because when Calor was like standing in the rain outside, and then he noticed that like or mud was like flowing uphill, and I was like, oh, it's the Talanimas. And then afterwards, knowing what happens later, I'm like, okay, that's why he changed his mind to join Whiskey Jet's army. Yeah.
I mean, I somehow managed to catch that the first time, even though stuff like that's so easy to miss for me, at
Yeah,
least.
that one I had to like reread a couple times. I'm like, okay, it's got to be the Talanimas, but I didn't quite put it together. Silver Fox, Talanimas, Calor.
Well, and I
But-
think I was on the edge of my seat for the last like 10 chapters waiting for Calor's betrayal because they set it up so early, and I was like,
Yeah.
this dude is patient. How has he not betrayed them yet? Like, how is
Right.
this? How are we this deep in and this hasn't happened? So as soon as he saw the dust, I was like, every time he's on the page, I'm like, ready for him to pounce. So,
Yeah. I also really like how decisive he is when he does betray them. Like, the instant he sees the opportunity, he goes for it.
Yep. But Orphanthal did say, I think, old man, when all is done, that I will come for you. And I really want to see that happen. And I'm just going to, I think it'll be epic. Watch it not be epic.
or he never gets to.
I like the brother and sister relationships in this book.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm ready.
Chapter 24. Quick Ben lets loose. Paran does his best dog impression. Dujek realizes they can't win the battle, so he doubles down and drops the entire freaking army inside Coral. The first sword of the Talanimas announces himself. The bridge burners split up. Whiskey Jack breaks a leg. The Talanimas take a knee at an inappropriate time.
Oh.
This
Ow.
chapter hurt
This chapter
so
was
much.
so good though.
It's good.
So, Quick Ben was really interesting in this chapter, right? So we say he knows more about being the master of the deck than Paran. He teaches him how to use the cards.
Yes.
And does he do that from intuition or from knowledge of previous masters of the deck?
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, his name's Quickbin, right? So, it implies he's quick on his feet. He's cunning. Maybe he just was like, this might work.
I do think Quick Ben is a highly intuitive person.
Yeah, we've seen that as well. Like, how did he know about the Mortal Sword and Shield Anvil and all of that in Kapustan? But also, Quickben has the knowledge of 11 other beings.
Yeah, 11
And
other
we don't-
pretty powerful mages.
Yeah, we don't know, at least Yasna and I, we don't know the identities of all of those beings.
And was this the chapter where he showed he can channel, like,
Curl
the
Galen?
Warren of Shadow directly?
Yeah.
Yeah, he used Curl Galen.
Oh, no,
And
it was
Burn's
Warren
like,
of
what?
Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, okay. I can't keep all the Corralled straight.
I think he might also use Mianas when he's doing the illusory demons that are causing
Yeah.
real damage.
Right. But he uses the Warren of Darkness, which is, like, not a mortal Warren, right?
It's not accessible to humans.
Yeah, so how's he doing that?
at least most humans.
At least
Yeah, I
most
don't know.
humans.
That's big stuff. And Picker underestimated the crap out of him.
Everyone does.
Everyone
Yeah.
does.
He's made like a career out of being underestimated.
Yeah, Picker's like,
Yeah.
Quick Ben, he's a good mage, but he's not. And you're,
Yeah,
oh my
he's not.
god.
Mhm.
Like, the first time we really saw that was when he met face to face with Shadow Throne, right? And he's like, I'll make a deal with you. And I think it's just, this part was so satisfying because we got the preview to his powers with Telemandus and the whole testing of the threshold, right?
Mhm.
And now we got to see it in full display. That was great.
Yep.
The descriptions are wonderful.
So I have a theory about Blend in this sequence when she's talking about how she can tell that the demons are illusions. I speculate that there's something about, like, so you know how, like, Fiddler is like an untrained adept with the deck of dragons, like he doesn't know he's an adept, but he can do readings. Like, I think that somehow Blend is partially aspected to Mianis.
Yeah, we just got that confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah, Quickman
just-
says
What?
that basically.
That's stated.
No, he
He
does.
says she's the
Yeah, he does. She tries to give him her lucky stone, and then he's like, "Oh, don't give this to me. If you gave it to me,
Sure.
then you wouldn't be blend anymore." And he's like, "No, she's just intuitively using a Warren."
Oh, he said
Well,
that?
Yeah.
No, he didn't explicitly say those words. He just said that, she doesn't even recognize her own talent or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Right, which led me to believe she's just that good at being stealthy. Because it wasn't capitalized, the word talent, right? I didn't see it that way.
Hmm.
I thought he was just saying, oh, she's just so good at sneaking around. She doesn't even realize how talented she is. But okay, makes sense, I
It's
guess.
kind
It
of
is
like
ambiguous.
It's kind of like a Dumbo's feather situation, or at least that's what I think of it as. Because she doesn't note that she was able to do this before she got the magic stone. Magic
Right.
stone. It's just a stone. And then after, no one notices her.
Right.
I saw it as kind of like a twist on Bilbo's ring.
Hmm.
Like Bilbo finds the ring, and then all of a sudden he's like this expert burglar because he can turn invisible, and she thinks the same thing, but it's just her inborn talent. It makes a lot of sense that you're saying that's what Quickbin meant, but that kind of takes away from like I thought it was like, oh, a normal person is just that talented, and they don't
Oh.
even know it, and she's underestimating herself, and now that it's magic, that undermines like the whole point of the
I
of the
mean,
scene
it had
from
to be
a
magic.
metaphorical standpoint.
I
Yeah.
assumed it was magic, but according to Quickbin, yeah, all he says is raw but pure talent right in her bones, and she doesn't even know it. So
Yeah.
when I hear
I-
talent, I just think magic, at least in this world.
Okay, well I read it wrong then, and I liked
No.
it better the way I read it. But
You can still
okay.
read it the way you want.
You
Unless-
do your headcanon, man.
Mhm.
Unless later it's like explicitly said or whatever. I have a lot of notes for this chapter since a lot has happened. We've already gone through some of them. The soldiers' humor between Picker and Paran about who would reach Hood's Gate first. Yeah.
They both survived though.
They
both survive.
did. But not necessarily emotionally intact.
Were
And
either of them emotionally intact before this book started?
I don't know, but
Before
they're
this
more
book
damaged now.
started. Yeah. I mean, I think Picker was more or less okay. It's just everything else went downhill. The mission to breach the keep, that reminded me of in World War II Doolittle's raid. It was after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and then Doolittle had a raid to bomb key strategic landmarks in Japan, and they could only have fuel for a one-way trip, so the soldiers had to land in China, and they didn't know if they were going to survive or not. They pretty much saw it as like a suicide mission. So
Speaking of Picker and Paran, Picker had the nicest way of saying, "I'm not going to kill you anymore."
Those knives have been pointing the other way for a long time,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing to say, but it was also kind of heartwarming at the same time.
Yes,
Mhm.
beautiful. You guys are making me wish I would have highlighted some quotes because you're bringing up all these nice ones. I have none.
Well, staying on the line of Picker, the poor woman having to lead a distraction of the Kachane Chamal, like
Oh my god,
Yeah.
terrifying.
the courage and the perseverance of the bridge burners, it's just quite something.
And the
Like-
ambition.
Yeah. And it's just how terrifying and uneven the odds are.
Mhm.
Yet swallow their fear and do their duty.
Duty.
Some
Shut up.
damn fine soldiers.
It's a big duty.
Ah,
We find
Did
out
you-
that Paran is a furry.
wait, what?
He
Oh,
turns into the Hound of Shadow
Right,
or
right,
whatever, or summons one.
Yeah.
Something.
when he fights the condor. Yeah.
Yeah, he does hound stuff.
It was neat.
It was neat. There's so many sad parts to this. Okay. Whiskey Jack dying, like that part was a bit shocking. Even though I was anticipating that Keller's going to do the betrayal and something bad is going to happen. But what really got me was the two Marines.
Mm.
So Whiskey Jack's Marines, they fought their darndest, and the, I'll just read the section. The women were superb, fighting as one, but the man they fought, a mortal scream. The Marine on the right stumbled in a welter of blood, reaching down to gather uncoiling, tumbling intestines, then sinking earthward. Her helmed head left her shoulders before her knees touched the ground. Like, when I read that, I was very close to tears because with Whiskey Jack, like we've already talked about him being stubborn and not having his leg healed. So to me, like he was a bit at fault for what ultimately happened. But the Marines, like they did nothing wrong. They were doing their duty to fight the enemy, and they died for it. And they didn't hesitate, right? Like they just did it. And all along the way, we were getting to know these Marines, even though we don't even know their names. Like their names are not mentioned. And
Unwitnessed.
yeah, I just they to me were more emotional than Whiskey Jack's death.
And they had no expectation of surviving the fight. We can see
Right.
this because when the other Marine was attacking with her sword, she surrendered she surrendered her arm just so she could stab Calor.
Right. Right.
Which that is a baller move.
Mhm.
That is super cool. And yeah, she died for it, but she accomplished what she wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, this is a part of Ericsson's trying to honor like fallen soldiers who we don't know their names.
Mhm.
So the Book of the Fallen is not just those whose names we can inscribe on the memorial. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whiskey Jack's Marines is basically what they're known as.
Kind of thought of them as Silver Foxes and Marines after a while.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah.
That's why we have
That
the
makes
tombs of the unknown soldiers in various countries.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Erickson is brutal. We see the Kachin Chamal lining up on the killing field, and there are so freaking many of them. Like
Like 900 or something like
OMG.
that.
Yeah, it's like 800.
It was surprising. I didn't think there were that many.
Yeah, like
It
how
was like the
freaking
population of a whole city, wasn't it? Before they started getting killed.
how big is Coral?
No,
Must be
the
ginormous.
population of the city, the Kachin
At
Shamala
Morn.
city, at Morn.
I know, but like these hunters were all in Coral, right? So Coral must be
Oh, right.
huge.
Right. I see what you're saying.
I don't
Yeah.
think it was necessarily the population of a city. I think it's somewhat less than that, because I think the matron only got captured in the portal after they've been fighting the Kachin and the Rook for a while.
Oh, okay.
Right, but the tombs of her children that she resurrected were in the city, like after she came back out, right? So
Yes, so presumably all those killed by the Nairuk.
right,
At least
Not
some
just
of them.
by the rent.
at least the ones that there's enough of them left to resurrect as zombies.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think that they're probably yeah.
Yeah. So when the Kachin Chamal, like, we see them lining up, I was thinking, okay, the Talanamas has to come. Like, this is their part to play in this book. And oh my god. They
Yeah.
This is why Silver Fox denied their release. Whether that is like actually Silver Fox or maybe it was Tattersail who influenced it, I don't know.
Well, this is part of why she also denied their release so she could finish setting up the whole my situation so they have a place to be.
To go to, right. When the Talanamas showed up, it was like spoilers for Lord of the Rings. It was like that moment where the ghost showed up. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Path of the Dead.
Yeah. And it was so cool and it was such an encouraging moment. But no, Erickson just took that hope and squashed it and stomped on it and spilled so much blood. And
The hope for the Malazans, but the hope for the Talani Mas was restored because of Akovian's compassion, freely given.
Yes, but the thing is that I never doubted that the Talanamas would be released. For me as a reader, I was like, I know that they're going to release, but here's an opportunity for them to really make a difference.
They still haven't been released. She gave them the option, but they still haven't been by the end of the book.
Yes,
they've been released from their pain.
Yeah,
Sure,
like I knew that they were going to have like well, I didn't know, but for me, I was anticipating that they were going to have some sort of relief.
Okay,
But
well that they have.
I was anticipating as well that they would be that, whether the like I said, the ghosts from Lord of the Rings, right? Like to help the fight.
Hmm.
But that was not the case. And I was upset with that.
Yeah, because it also goes against everything we've seen with Tlanimas so far, because
Right.
they are the ones that obey orders. They are
And
the loyal
they
ones.
specifically said that they would fight the
They-
Kachin Chamal.
Yeah, and then they decided, you know what? No more. We're not going to do this anymore.
And
Did they
here's-
really
here's-
actively decide that, or were they just caught up in the moment with Itkovian?
I think they decided because Itkovian only went out to join them later. I think.
I think
I
Tattersall
think-
was their last hope, and they lost when Tattersall denied them.
Yeah.
They just kind of gave up completely,
Mhm.
like that last
Huh.
shred of hope.
I'll have to reread it because I read it as Itkovian approached them when they were about to go do it anyway, and was like, "Give me your pain," and that was like what pulled them away from their task.
It could be either way, but like you also
Yeah.
see that the Talon Eye denied.
Denied
Silver Fox.
Silver Fox. Yeah.
And I think what made this even more upsetting for me was thinking about it from the Grey Swords perspective, from the Malazan army perspective, where can you imagine like you're looking at your odds and you're like, we're gonna die. And then you see, hey, reinforcements came. Oh my goodness, we may actually have hope. And then that hope was just dashed.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, to their credit, they still went forward.
And I think a part of it is that they know their comrades are in the city. But
Yes.
Even completely exhausted, basically dead on their feet, after seeing their commander die, and then having this false hope.
Right.
The fact that they still managed to fight, insane.
Yeah.
So, in defense of the Talanimas accepting Itkovian's gesture, have any of you ever been told by somebody like who needs to utilize your resources or your time or your energy, like, and you need relief? Oh, just after this next thing, just after this next thing, just after this next thing, right?
Yeah. I don't
And if
hold
you're
it
the-
against the Amas at all.
Right. If you're the Talanimas, who knows how many next things. I mean, an army of the dead is pretty useful.
Mhm.
So who knows how many next things, and Silver Fox didn't communicate that it was even going to be after the next thing. She was just like, no.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, but I don't blame the Talanimas. And this might be a controversial perspective. I was upset with the Kovians.
Oh my goodness!
That's.
Wow.
I think that's fair.
I was upset with the Kovian because of the timing.
Mhm.
It wasn't because of necessarily what he did. All of these things is timing.
right. So you wanted Itkovian to say just after this next thing.
It was more that he stepped out into the field, even having seen what they were all up against. And
Did he see the Kachin Shamala like at the end coming
Yeah,
out of the
they-
gates?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's
they
what
were all
prompted the
lined up.
Talanimas to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
out.
He saw it.
Oh,
it was very
Okay.
clear, like, what the situation was.
I knew it was clear to me. I didn't know if it was clear to Itkovian at that exact moment.
I mean, he could have been in a daze and not realized.
I don't think he cared.
know.
Yeah.
And it's just like from my perspective, I was like, oh my god, I wasn't as convinced about the motivations and like really bought in versus the author was using this as plot, like to move the plot.
Hmm.
Huron is shaking his head at me. No.
I could not disagree more. No, I agree that this is very, very, very purposeful, but for plot purposes, it would be so much more convenient for the Kachin Shamal and the Talani Mas to fight each other, right? That's more exciting.
Which I mean, he
Yeah.
ultimately did give us that with the Talon Eye.
Yeah.
But it more of like he being Erickson throwing wrenches into things to make a point.
I think before Itkovian accepted the grief of Capistan, then he probably would have cared more. But I think Itkovian pre-accepting the grief and Ikovian after accepting the grief are two different people, essentially. Because he's under literally hundreds of thousands of people's lives, and there's no way that's not influencing him.
Yeah, but it's like, I would have thought that for somebody who has so much burden on him that they would be like, okay, this is enough. But he did the opposite. He's like, no, give me
He
more.
just doubled down, yeah.
Well,
I
think
would expect nothing less of Ikovian.
yeah, that's
I'm not as
totally
convinced.
consistent with how I read his character.
Like, I
Yeah,
get what we're being shown. It's just, I'm just saying that I was upset by it.
I think he still would have accepted the grief of the Talani Mass, but I think he probably would have waited. I think he would have had a better sense of timing and be more sensitive to the conflict.
To the military situation.
Yeah.
Because pre-accepting the grief of Kapustan, he was also the shield anvil of Fenner in a mercenary company. He's a military commander.
Mm-hmm.
But post that, he's just a guy without a god who still has the powers of a shield anvil, and but no assistance on using those powers.
The gods are bastards sometimes.
Yeah, they are. Can't believe they denied him.
Mm-hmm.
Cole punched Wrath's Shadow Throne like a boss.
That was awesome.
It was awesome. And that's all I got for the chapter. Go ahead with quotes.
These simple words really spoke to me. So Ikovian walks to the Talani Mas, and all he says is, "You are in pain. I would embrace you now." Wonderful. Wonderful. Love it.
I'm still upset. Mostly because Erickson did a very good job. Like, it's almost like Erickson did too good of a job building up all these moments of pain. And then, I got so attached to the bridge burners and the Malazans and the Grey Swords that moment was so upsetting. For example, when they were flying the soldiers into Coral, and I'm moving into quotes, the High Fist watched, silent, as between two beats of his cold heart, 1,000 black Moranth, their quarrels, and 5 companies of One Arm's host disintegrated in gray flames. And it's just, it's more of this, how quickly and easily their resources were just getting diminished. And it was just like, hey, you had hope? Nope. You had hope? Nope. And it's just constantly punch, punch, punch. And at the one point where I thought I would get relief, I was like, nope, denied.
Yeah.
That is why I'm upset.
Erickson, when writing the series, the magic is meant to mirror the use of artillery and machine guns in World War I, and just the sheer amount of destruction it caused and how cheap it made life seem. Also, I love the Moranth, and it makes me so sad to see all of them die.
Yeah, they literally, like, the Moranth didn't necessarily have to die, but because the corals were so fragile when they were doing the dive bombing,
they're
died.
Such bros. And
They
also,
are.
they're the ones who originally expressed compassion when they let the Teist Eater into their civilization and learned from them instead of perpetuating a pointless blood feud. They're so cool.
Except they also did kill a bunch of people in Pale.
No, they're cool. They're not like moral paragons.
Yeah. Murillo sits on Hood's altar. That was pointed out by Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something's gonna come out of that.
No comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 25. Itkovian and the Maib create a world together. Talk is rescued and gets something off his chest. The bridge burners fall. Moon Spawn makes an appearance. Tog and Fanderay reunite and attempt to figure out how to sit on a throne. Itkovian is done. The Seer makes a new home for himself and his sister. Silver Fox releases the Eye and leaves with the Eye Mask for another continent. The remaining bridge burners retire. Talk is reborn, and Tool gets laid.
Does he?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's okay. Fine.
We talked about the Maib.
Let's talk about the Maib.
I love the
Maib.
part where Cole stood in between, I think it was Karul and the Maib, and he was ready to fight. I love Cole. And I'm so happy that the Maib finally got a good ending. It was very cathartic.
Yeah, the Maib is essentially Burn 2.0 now.
Was it Marilia said, how many old sleeping women are there?
Yeah.
Yes. Which was my question too. as a reader. So I like that he asked it, but we
It's
did
at
not
least
get
2.
an answer.
What did Hood get out of it?
The Talana Mas, right?
Hmm?
He's gonna
Did
get
he?
the Talana Mas. Well, here's my question. So Silver Fox approached Hood for a deal,
Mhm.
right? And as part of that deal, like my understanding is that Hood helped create the place in the what is that even called? Is it a warren?
It's the Mibes dream world. That's what I think of it
Mibes
as.
Yeah.
Dream World, right? Like Hood helped create that, and so my understanding with the Talon and Moss going there would be somehow them being under Hood. I don't know.
Did he help create it, or did he help create the conditions that would let her like sleep forever in his temple and be entombed and so
I
forth?
just saw that as the
Maybe both.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good interpretation. I never thought about it, but yeah, it makes most sense.
So speaking of the Mibe, my faith in Krupp paid off, and my lack of faith in Silver Fox was at least partially misplaced. But this reminds me of that meme or GIF where it's like, not gonna lie, they had us in the first half. But I wish Silver Fox and Krupp had been a little more communicative of their intentions. It might have been less painful for the IMAS and the MIB if they were.
You could say that for a lot of characters in this book.
Yes.
Communication,
Yeah.
communication.
I mean-
Communication and not thinking you're the smartest person in the room playing 5D chess.
Quick, Ben.
I think it's very, very, very hard to know when something is okay to be shared and when it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh,
fair.
I
I would-
understand.
Yeah, I would imagine there would be no shortage of people wanting to sabotage Silver Fox and Krupp's plans there. Most notably, Calor, probably. I definitely wouldn't put it past him just assassinate the Maibo to spite to hurt Silver Fox.
Right. Yeah. The problem, of course, which the narrative has kind of highlighted time and again, is that a lot of these people who do this and have good reasons to not communicate their intricate plans about other people is their plans seem to all rely on like there being no agency on the part of the people they're trying to help. And then, of course, surprise, that's not true. And they do things that like monkey wrench the plans, like the Talani Mass accepting Akovian's offer, like Fellison's actions in Deadhouse Gates. There's other examples, but this is like a recurring theme where like the chess wizards think they have the whole game planned out ahead of time, but they forget that the pawns can like move around on their own.
And don't forget justified trust issues.
Yeah, big trust issues. Every soul within Silver Fox, except for the child Silver Fox, has been betrayed.
Yeah.
Arguably, the child Silver Fox has been abandoned.
Yes. Which also not great for trust issues. I don't think it's necessarily the people thinking there's a lack of agency. I think they're just underestimating human unpredictability.
Isn't that just a different way of saying the exact same thing?
If you I don't know. I interpret agency as just like they're able to do what they want, but not necessarily they're going to do unexpected things. Like, it would be within my own agency to go and pet my cat right now, but I'm highly disposed to doing so.
Can I have a gripe?
Yes.
Yes.
You may.
Stupid pissing contests. I do these characters I was upset with the Kovian timing and Mock, like, you are in the enemy's lair and people are dying all around you, yet you just want to go and prove yourself against this dude, this one dude. It's almost like one of those movies where there's like a ticking time bomb and the protagonists decide to stop and have a chat about whatever. And you're just like, you do realize like there is a bomb, and okay, anyway.
Sure, but in this case, Mock is not a protagonist. He's a character that's been established to not care about compassion mostly, aside from like wanting to help that dog earlier. And
No, I get
he's, like,
that.
Yeah.
It's more of like my frustration as a reader with what I'm
it was
reading.
very frustrating.
And I'm like, oh my god.
Couldn't you have waited like 3 hours for this?
Yeah.
The Segula Society is ridiculous. I don't know how
Yeah.
they survive.
It's very toxic. They're like Spartans on hyper crack.
how do they reproduce? If like
Sexually.
everyone they meet, they're like, I'm gonna fight you.
Okay, they just have very established bottoms and tops.
Right. They probably don't fight as much at home because they've already established the hierarchy and they only have to do that like until it comes into question.
Well, yeah. It's only if you challenge the hierarchy that they're gonna fight you. If you just kind of like don't make eye contact and treat them with respect,
don't look at each other,
But
basically.
Tool and Rake don't fit into the hierarchy. That's why they're obsessed with fighting them. Because they have to figure out what their place is.
Except Tool wasn't even like he just existed, you know?
Yeah, I think at some point it became a personal like thing to prove, something to prove. Dumb pissing contest, as one of our panelists said.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I totally get it, but at the same time, it was awesome.
And it led to the awesome Talk's final step, suicide by ribcage exploding, releasing the god, and
Oh my God.
so
Ugh.
forth.
I'm so glad that Talk got a new body.
Yeah.
Talk got a new body. Tool became
Still missing an eye.
undead. Tool became not
Undead.
undead. Yeah. Gosh.
And he's not Tool anymore, he's Onos Toulon again.
Yeah.
According to him.
I mean, it's I just feel like it's the same. Tool's just a nickname.
I think there's metaphorical significance to that.
Oh, like
Okay.
he's choosing not to be a tool.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay.
And he has that choice again now.
Okay.
It's rough though that Talk has to go through puberty again.
And that's just not
Well,
that
it's
young.
He's
partially over.
He's like 14, I think?
16?
No, he's
14,
16.
Okay,
So,
well,
so
that's
some of
still,
the worst of that is past.
still
Is
puberty.
it? I don't know.
I don't know. 12 through 16 is a lot rougher for me than 16 through 21.
Well, at least he doesn't have memory of going through puberty.
He has the muscle memory of eating corpses.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's something that wasn't addressed. How did the Grey Swords like reconcile the Tenascari's diet?
I don't know.
I assume they were just like, you're not allowed to eat corpses anymore. Accept or don't. If you don't accept,
Here's
then you're gonna
venison.
starve to death.
We're still talking about cool stuff. Giant tiger creature was awesome
And impractical.
and very impractical, but it was awesome.
It
I mean,
was
they
awesome.
could travel really fast, so that
Yeah.
was practical.
Right, but for
Whatever.
the fighting, it wasn't practical. Like, every time
Or
they
the-
got hit, people died.
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, they did a lot better than basically any other human army against the Kill Hunters.
Oh,
That
that's
is
true.
true.
Can we go back for 1 second to the Tog thing?
Mm.
I thought that that finally resolved once and for all that the poems and the epigraphs were not indicators that the characters survived long enough to write about their experiences. So I like emailed here and I was like, "How did Tog's dead butt write all these poems about the events of these first 3 books?" And he like laugh reacted it, and then like the next message I sent him was like, "Never mind, I understand now," because he gets the new body, right? And he could always author the stuff as Talk the Younger instead of a Nasser. So it's the jury's still out on whether poems get included that couldn't have been written because the person was dead or not.
Could also be a ghostwriter.
Remember, death is not the end.
Yeah.
Also cool stuff. The way Trots and Deterin go out.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
More
Trots
trots
is
to
awesome.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of my quotes. Even as she watched, he staggered, sank to his knees, teeth bared in a smeared grin, and died.
He just wanted to make sure his friends were okay.
He was just high on the adrenaline and maybe god powers or something.
I think it was
don't
like
know.
sheer force of will that was keeping him on his feet after he'd been chopped apart. And he's just like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to get them to safety. And then he got them to
Oh.
safety. And then he's just like, I can give up now.
Oh,
Talking of dead
trots.
bridge burners, man. That scene with what was it, Blend and
Hedge?
Envy?
Oh, yes.
That was hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Envy's just like, she's just not aware that they're not as good as the Skula.
It was Picker, because Envy was like, "Is this gonna take long?" Picker's like,
no.
"Nope."
Yeah.
And Envy's like, "Okay."
You should have told me
wait.
you're being sarcastic.
Do you think she erased his memories of saying that?
What?
Whose memories?
Well, I noted here Will this take long? She asked. No, it won't, Picker said. And if Picker wasn't so flippant, things might have been different, right? And she said, a more honest answer to my question earlier would have resulted in a far less horrible episode. And Picker kind of just like is completely dead to what she's saying. She doesn't
I
have.
think it was more of Picker was numb by
Well,
all
she
the
says,
death.
perhaps it is best that you have no recollection of that sardonic quip. So she's saying that he doesn't even remember saying that.
She?
Yeah,
She-
sorry. She.
Mm, I think I took it as that
I always
Picker.
make Anthony and Picker.
I took it as she was about to erase her memory of it.
Oh, I
Like, because
didn't
she's
think
like,
it
oh,
was.
it's probably best you don't remember this.
I didn't think it was that. I thought it was Picker was just so stunned by what she was saying. Like, what are you
No,
talking
yeah,
about?
I took it as that, but then I took Envy's comment after that as, I'm about to erase your memory so you don't have beef with me, essentially.
No.
I thought it was actually more of a compassion thing. So like, hey, if you had said this, all of these people wouldn't be dead. So like, I'm going to erase your memory of having said
I
that, so
see.
you don't blame yourself.
I see.
Interesting. I never took Envy for the compassionate type.
Well, she wants to rescue Talk. That's basically her motivation here.
Yeah.
And to give a message to Rake that he already knows.
But doesn't she
Right.
want to? She doesn't want to rescue Talk out of compassion. She sees him as a plaything. She sees
I
mortals
disagree.
as.
Yeah.
I think she actually cares for Talk.
Yeah.
I think she cares too.
Okay, whatever. I don't read her that way.
Blend also tries to sacrifice herself to save Picker when Hedge blows himself up, and I think
Yeah.
that's just sweet. Also, Yasna in one of the chats was like, "This should qualify as one of the best romances." Did you guys catch the hints at the relationship in
Yeah.
the later part of the book? Yeah. Okay. Good.
I
They're
did
lovers,
not.
right?
And there's like even a point where it's like they're talking about bumping each other.
Yeah.
I didn't get that was a metaphor or innuendo.
They yeah, they're
There was
some
this
real close
one
friends.
scene where they like walked off together after some other people were getting it on or whatever.
Yeah, they went arm in arm.
Yeah. They're like the night hides blah blah blah, darkness hides blah blah blah, whatever.
Canig Toll's memories were why I fight so hard against the Flanimas and their genocide. And he says, I, Canig Toll, watched as my hunters hurled their spears. She fell without making a sound, the last of her kind on this continent. And had I a heart, it would have burst then. There was no justice in this war. We'd left our gods behind and knelt only before an altar of brutality, truth. And I, Canig Toll, should not turn away from truth. There's no justice in that war, none whatsoever.
I agree.
And I think it's amazing that these people have been genociding for so long, and I still feel bad for them.
Mallet and how basically he's on suicide watch, right? Like people are making sure that he doesn't kill himself because it wasn't his fault that Whiskey Jack's leg wasn't healed properly, and ultimately that's supposedly what killed him. I'm not 100% convinced that Whiskey Jack, even with a healed leg, wouldn't necessarily have died, but it was a very big factor in the way that it went down.
They did say that he could hold his own against Dasamultor.
Yeah, it took him a while to get past his guard.
True.
We can't know that he would have survived long enough for Tayshrin to save his butt if his leg would have
Held out.
been healed, but we can know that the leg caused the death that did occur. We can't
Correct.
know that it would have prevented a death that didn't occur.
Yes.
And I'm glad
I understand.
Corlat lied about it.
Yeah. And it wasn't just Corlat, right? Other, like...
Gruntle
Yeah,
stopped Stani from calling her out.
Yeah.
On a slightly lighter note, and that's weird because we're talking about like a funeral or like a tomb basically, but what does Paran's blessing of the bridge burners do you think, Panda?
Okay, so this goes back to the thing about like death is not final. I do think that we're gonna see the bridge burners again, like these specific ones that are entombed in Moonspawn. How much of a role they're going to have to play later on. I'm not sure. I don't think it'll be like super big necessarily, but I do think that we're gonna see them again in some form.
I think that the song that guy,
Hemlock?
that fiddler ran into,
Yeah,
yeah, that
Hemlock.
he sang it in time for their ascendancy to happen when they died, and that Piran's blessing like was like the match on the kerosene.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about the Hemlock situation, and yeah, it's a
Yeah.
pretty logical speculation, I think.
Speaking of Moonspawn, it
Yeah.
almost shows up too late. And if it had shown up like a few hours earlier, the conflict would have
Okay.
looked much different.
It kind of did show up too late in some ways.
Yeah,
ways,
and
yeah.
I just
Because the Malazans rushed in.
yes, but the way I'm not 100% really certain about why Moonspawn had to be hidden the way that it was and all of that.
Yeah,
So
so in Gardens of the Moon, they imply that Rake could just fly Moonspawn up super high, like into the atmosphere, and they could just like, live in complete isolation on pause forever, and it would just be a stagnant life and they would all eventually die off. So why couldn't they just do that for a little bit and then come down and not like break Moonspawn in the process?
it's almost like the condors were this thing where if it's in the air, the condors are gonna find it. But I
Even if
guess
it's like way up, way up, couldn't they have like kind of
they're demonic, yeah,
I think
I'm
if they're anywhere but the ocean, they would have been found.
Yeah.
but it's like, why would that have been a bad thing to know where Moonspawn was?
I read it as basically the seer was holding himself back for just that kind of situation, so he could destroy the big players in the game like Kaladin, Brood, or Animenda Rake. And this kind of surprise attack really, caught him off guard and allowed him to get neutralized. Let's say.
It made him
I agree.
overconfident earlier on because he was convinced before the Malazans even arrived that Rake was done
Yeah,
and
that too.
Moonspawn was done.
But then
Even
he-
Corlad thought that they might be gone.
Mhm.
Right, but that means he basically unleashed all his power on the humans.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Animender wanted to arrive earlier, but he's like, "Sorry, I'm late."
Well, like I
He's
said, the
such a-
Malazans jumped a gun.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
this like a Gandalf moment? Anyway, on a more positive note, Gruntle was going to give Anaster a piece of his mind, like, you're my rival. But
It's like,
then,
I bet he's a stuck-up guy.
and then Anaster / Talk was so nice to him. He's like, do you understand what Mortal Sword is? He's like,
No, do you?
know? No. And then he walks away thinking, oh, we're friends now. That was nice.
Let me just say, I think Coral, at the end of this book, becomes the most desirable place for lower to middle class people to live in the world. Let me explain a few reasons why. One, dark, so you don't have to worry about that pesky sun burning you and giving you skin cancer. Two, cheap real estate. Three, there's a significant labor shortage. And you know what happens when there's a significant labor shortage? Workers' rights. That's what the Black Plague did.
True.
Oh my goodness.
but
Sold.
don't count on the vitamin A and D and other important things coming from the sun.
It incentivizes you to take frequent walks, ensuring that you'll remain fit. There you go.
And who needs it?
They just walk outside the city, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I would love to live in Coral. I would love to live where it's somewhere there's no sun. Screw the sun. It's too hot. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Monty Burns blocks out the sun. I want someone to do that to the city of Ottawa.
Oh my goodness.
I would like
Today
that as
I
well.
learned Ashaman is a vampire.
Funny you say that. Vampires. Always been the monster I like the most.
So, how did Onos Toulon Onos Toulon get to be IMAS again and no longer a Toulon IMAS when the rest of the Second Gathering are still zombies?
Silver Fox. Silver Fox relinquished the ritual thing on him. That was my understanding because Tool laid down his flint sword in front of her, and then she then realized, oh, this is what I was meant to do as the summoner.
I think Tog and Fanderay could have also played a part, but you know.
So is that maybe what's going to happen to all of the Talani Mass once they're done with their last fight, assuming they survive and don't have another last fight?
I think so. I think basically what Silver Fox can do is she can undo the ritual.
I believe
And
so,
that
too.
doesn't just turn them to dust, apparently.
No. Remember when I said in the second gathering, Silver Fox is just gonna like suck up all of the Telanimas and then be like,
Ethan.
I'm gonna take you to another reality. That kind of happened.
Yeah,
sort
you
of.
weren't wrong.
Well, except they put it off because they want to keep fighting.
Yeah, but that's like essentially the plan.
A Sale,
Yeah.
which I believe is the last book written in
So-
chronological.
Sale? Yeah, that would make sense.
Do you think we'll see more of the Knight of Hood?
The Knight of Death person?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So Perron's retirement. He's no longer a soldier, but he's still master of the deck. So obviously he doesn't get a full retirement because he'll have to do master of the deck stuff. We didn't get to see him bless the House of Chains yet, so that's still an open question. Also, Lysine is going to be pissed that a resource like the master of the deck gets put out of the control of the Malazan army and out of the discipline of the Malazan army. I guarantee you she did not sanction that decision.
This is it's not the chapter where it occurs, but I really like when Whiskey Jack and Dude Jack are talking, and they're like, we can't let anyone else know the long-term plans of the Empire, because empires aren't supposed to have long-term plans like this.
Yeah.
The Malazan Empire, very, very special. Do you guys have any ideas what the long-term plan of the Empire is?
World peace.
I mean, that's like every empire ever,
Wow.
supposedly.
So it's a safe answer.
Yeah, I have no idea.
There's also the idea that once the Malazans have treated with you, you're granted special status, and they'll basically never conquer you. They'll just like send some people over, like, hey, you want to trade with us? No? Okay,
We'll leave you alone.
We'll leave you alone.
Quotes.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So this is the Mibe, and she had talk inside of her. Said she could not be entirely sure, but she believed that she started crawling once more. The beast howled in her mind, a voice raw with agony. She would have to free it, if she could. Such was pity's demand, not love. Ah, now I see. Thus, see, her act of compassion for Tog is what helped her realize everyone else's
Compassion towards
way.
her.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
It's also pretty incredible. Like this can be applied to a lot of things in real life. There's like even if you feel alone, most of the time there's a lot of people looking out for you, even if you don't know it.
Yeah.
Maybe they can do a better job of letting you know, but still, I think that's a very important thing to remember.
I think honestly, like what the biggest takeaway of all of these things that we've read is, and we've voiced this before, don't jump to conclusions. Try to put yourself in that other person's shoes. And usually it's like don't if you're quick to have an emotion, like just think on it a little bit before acting on it. That's not necessarily to say like if you're in danger, don't save yourself, but just in normal day-to-day situations.
Yeah.
There was the line that Orphantal said to Corlat after Whiskey Jack died. To grieve is the gift of the living, a gift so many of our kin have long lost. Do not retreat, descend, Corlat, to the mortal realm. And I've been to my share of funerals, not to say like a lot, just I've been to a few. And it is interesting how you have a bunch of people who are gathered to like partake in somebody's having left this reality, this world. And one way to look at it is the funeral is really for the people that are left behind to have closure rather than for the person who actually died.
Yeah. Erickson, I really like this about him. He very much appreciates the power of rituals and how important they are to humans. And even Perron later, he's like, I wish I could have had that. Before he thought funerals were pointless, but now he realizes he needs that kind of thing. And so they visit Moonspawn.
Right.
I have no more quotes.
Jasnah, do you have quotes?
I do. I also forgot to bring up that the Amtos Felak thing inside of Burn was the most complicated way for Quickbin to prescribe anti-inflammatory drugs to Burn.
Mm-hmm.
A cold compress.
Took the whole book just to give her some steroids, basically.
I'm glad that the Witch of Talan paid off.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
so she's not Jagat at all? Okay.
Yeah, maybe she's hiding.
I
But no, I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I have Lady Envy and Rake, because I agree with him. I don't like Lady Envy. Lady Envy had seen them. Lieutenant dear, what a relief to see you well. Could you believe the audacity of that white-haired sword-stuffed? Would you be referring to me? A deep voice asked. Through the gloom stepped Anamander Rake. Had I known you were within the keep, Lady Envy, I would have brought Moonspawn all the way down. Oh, what a thing to say! What are you doing here? The Son of Darkness growled. And then they talk a little bit, and then he turns away and says, We've spoken enough, Envy. They will seek a way to break the sword. Aye, they might. Your very life totters on the whim of a mortal man. Anamander Rake paused, glanced back at her. I'd best stepped careful then, hadn't I? A moment later, he continued on into the loose crowd of Tai Standee. And that is such a cool line. I love how Anamander Rake realizes how freaking dangerous mortals are, despite being this immortal bamf who's lived, like, forever and ever.
I think if anybody is to be immortal, it should be people like Lady Envy, because she seems to be the only one who is kind of enjoying it. She's essentially like a Greek goddess.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
the sense I
know.
get. I think it was, the seer says, we Jagat are not known for compassion among our blood-tied kin, and Parang grimaced. And we humans are. You're not the only one who finds such things a struggle. There's much you have to repair, Panion, starting with what is within yourself, with what you've done. Yeah. It starts from within.
All right, Ashaman, give us the best
All right.
quote in the whole series.
Yeah, my first and last quote of the episode. I think every single person who's read this series before will know what I'm going to say. We humans do not understand compassion. In each moment of our lives, we betray it. Aye, we know of its worth, yet knowing we then attach to it a value. We guard the giving of it, believing it must be earned. Tlanimas, compassion is priceless in the truest sense of the word. It must be given freely, in abundance. And if you're going to take away one thing from this series, I think that's the one. And this is really what persuaded me that the idea of someone getting what they deserve is not something that I'm okay with anymore. I think it's a monstrous thing to do.
I think the Mive got what she deserved.
Maybe. But I don't think it should
In
be
the
about
end.
that. I think regardless of whether or not someone deserves to have bad things happen to them, you shouldn't try and inflict that. You should try and give them compassion, and if they're willing, help them to change or allow them the opportunity to change.
I think that's the key, is allowing them the opportunity to change.
And yeah, we see this expressed in the novel a lot of times, most notably with the Panion Seer, because by all rights, this man, this Jagat, probably deserves to die. He inflicted pain and suffering on a scale that pretty much no one does or has done. And sure, bad things happen to him, but does that justify it? I don't think so. And yet, he's given another chance.
It's important to remember that he is also a victim.
Yeah? Aren't we all?
Most of the people in the series that do bad things are too.
Is the cripple god a victim? He actually is, because he didn't
He is
choose to
definitely a
come
victim.
to
Yeah.
that world. Yeah.
Brood almost used his hammer.
Yes,
When
he
things
did.
were super dire, he almost used it to wake the sleeping goddess. So, Panda, is
Okay.
Brood's hammer going to be used before the end of Book 10?
Before the end of book 10?
Or like up to and including the end of book 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be book 4, and then the other 5 books are just going to 6 books are just going to be Brood thinking how sad life is alone.
Well,
Wait, wouldn't he get destroyed if...
They've said that it would mostly destroy like all of civilization, but not necessarily like end the world. But then they'd have to reckon with the freed, crippled god. So
I don't know
it's
exactly.
possible he wouldn't be alone, but he would be in a civilization reduced to rubble.
And the followers of the crippled god,
Well,
presumably
some of them would die too, in the like world-shaking event that destroys civilization and reduces it to almost nothing.
Okay. Epilogue. Piran finds a roommate. Cruel's bar is opened.
That
Yay.
bar.
Yeah. Raced, by all accounts, he seems like an awful roommate. I think he would not do his dishes.
Well,
and be
it's
generally
not
aggressive.
It's not just Raced as the roommate, right? In fact, it's roommates because there are 2 sleeping.
Oh, yes, there are 2 unconscious bodies that he can do something with at some point.
Maybe he could bless them.
And he just goes around blessing everybody.
That would certainly throw off the power dynamics.
We did get to see Dweeker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is the best of the 3 epilogues so far, and I love the very end when Dweeker starts telling the story of the Chain of Docks. I thought it put a nice bow on these 2 books.
Yeah, I mean, all 3, right? Like,
yes,
events leading up. Yeah, I do feel a little bad for Picker and the bar not doing very well on opening night. Hopefully that'll change, but yeah.
Even worse, they have a Krupp as a patron, and basically all he does is mooch.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of listener questions. Want to dive in?
Covered quite a bit of them. Our first listener question is: what new things was most surprising to you, and did it make you want to puke a bit? It's from Lady Sweden.
I think she may be referring to toes.
Toes? She could be.
And if she were, yes, I agree.
Or maybe Gumble and or Mulligan.
That didn't make me want to puke necessarily. Yeah.
I guess you're like scared of toads, then maybe.
But that was the most surprising thing for me, was that he introduced this amazing character so late, but then immediately like didn't do anything with it.
Steven Erickson and amazing characters? No way.
Spindle's hair shirt was definitely the most disgusting.
Yes.
It is, but at least Spindle didn't like kiss the shirt.
Okay.
Oh.
We should probably just like segue right from this into the FMK. Spindle, Krupp, and Toes.
Wait, first, I thought of something that made me want to puke more and was more surprising. Hitan and Krupp's relationship makes me want to puke because just imagining it. And it was really surprising too.
It was surprising. I won't go as far to say I would puke. It's not something I want to entertain.
I'm most surprised by Krupp's alleged stamina.
That's why I want to puke.
Big things come in small packages.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Okay, FMK?
Yeah, FMK.
Yeah, I changed it to Kiss, Marry, Kill.
Okay. Well,
pod friendly.
I'm going to be answering it for FMK.
Okay.
I want the listeners to know that.
Okay.
I have very strong opinions on this. So, okay. First of all, I think I would definitely marry Toes because he's the kind of guy who has the foresight to cut off the people he's killed Toes so they don't come after him. And he's also into arts and crafts, which I just find complements my personality rather well. Now, it's the F part that really gets me. I would probably... Okay, so Krupp, apparently legendary lover. And also, being that he's so greasy, lots of natural lubricant there. But Spindle has... Okay. Spindle I might also want to marry because, she apparently has a great mother-in-law. I would have a great mother-in-law. Just like talk with her all the time. But yeah, he also wears a hair shirt to bed, and that's like really kinky. And I feel like everyone needs to like have one truly weird experience like that. Kill maybe Krupp, though he would finally shut up.
Yes, no, your answers, so I could forget what Ashaman just said.
Uh, F Spindle just to get it over with. Marry Krupp, kill Toes.
You would be able to survive married life with Krupp?
It's the least worst of all the three options to me.
Oh man. I guess you would have a hard time getting pets if you had Spindle, which is a true concern.
I mean, at least my spouse could tell me a lot of jokes, and I would laugh a lot before I finally got sick of it.
My answer is F Krupp because, like you said, he's good in bed apparently. Marry Spindle for no other reason other than I'd like to kill Toes because I mean he's a necromancer anyway, so I think it's just kind of fitting.
I don't want to answer this question.
You don't have to if you don't want to, but it is a mark of cowardice.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm gonna kill Spindle. Could I marry Toes? I'll marry Krupp and then I'll kiss Toes. At
Okay.
least Toes.
Are you gonna kiss Toes?
No, I do not have a foot fetish. Please do not take away that I have a foot fetish.
Everyone, you heard it here. She has a foot fetish.
No.
Especially Toes. Probably dirty ones.
No.
Dead ones.
I mean, we haven't gotten anything, I think, where Toes doesn't take off his toe shirt, whereas Spindle refuses to take off his hair shirt. So
Yeah, Spindle is actively prevented from taking off his hair shirt.
so I'm gonna say the Toes would be able to take off. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Next question.
Mhm.
Okay, Tormig asks, how heavily foreshadowed was Whiskey Jack's death to you in retrospect?
Very.
Yes.
Very.
Wow.
Very, but I expected him to die in the Crippled God, along with the rest of the
Oh.
bridge burners who died in this book.
Nice. I
So-
guess that was a good subversion.
7 books early. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they would make it all to the end and all die tragically.
Hmm.
Possibly after deciding to do something super heroic or something, and compassionate. But yeah.
Thor also has another question. Did any scenes stand out to you as obvious plants for future books? And are you learning to anticipate Steve?
Am I learning to anticipate Steve? Yes. Am I anticipating correctly? TBD. Plants. I think the Teist-Edor is a plant. I think Murillo sitting on Hood's altar could be a plant. Yeah, there are probably a few others.
The eye masks and their war in a sail.
That one's kind of a give me, right?
Yeah. The beggar, the house
of-
that the beggar is talking about is the House of Chains. Yes. So
Oh, the mortal sword thing about the House of Chains is a plant for either a recurring character from Dead House Gates or one we will meet in House of Chains.
yep.
Jagar asks, Stunny tells Curly that Gruntle is great at staying out of things, and Curly replies something along the lines of, I don't think he'll be able to with what's going to happen. What do you think he's referring to? It could have been the general siege, but it could also refer to something more specific.
I thought it was about the siege.
Yeah.
I thought it was about the siege as well.
And we
Yeah.
also see just like not just Cruel able to anticipate things, but like a lot of people able to anticipate general things in the book. Like Whiskey Jack and Dujek just kind of know that they're not going to see each other again. A lot of people recognize that Shrake is on the rise before he's officially on the rise.
Right.
Like there's a temple built at the start of the book before, he's even ascended to godhood. And yeah, it's just like a lot of people playing a lot of dimensions of chess all over.
I have a different answer, and that's that I think Cruel has stated already that there's no escape from the coming war, and I think it like he thinks every being on the planet will be involved in the war having to do with the crippled god. So he might have been looking into the far future and not necessarily anticipating that Gruntle would like get caught up in the siege, be the mortal sword, blah blah blah.
Actually, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think I agree. I don't necessarily think it's specific to Gruntle exactly. It could be a more broad statement where it's like, doesn't really matter who you are, what's coming, like you're not going to be able to escape it. It's gonna impact all of us.
And he's said that before, so
Yeah,
somewhere.
but vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
Okay, Lady Sweden asks if you could have spared one life in Memories of Ice, which one and why?
Can't really think of any candidates.
I choose Whiskey Jack. I wanted a happy life for him, and he can't retire with Corlat anymore, and she's devastated.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best love story that I've gotten so far. Now it's gone. Although, I don't know necessarily if when Whiskey Jack comes back, if that would resume and...
Yeah, I feel like I have to say Whiskey Jack because as much as I think Harlow deserved a better deal, sparing him might like have changed events so that Gruntle doesn't become the Mortal Sword, and that kind of messes a bunch of stuff up.
About the same thing.
I think I save Hedge.
Oh, Hedge.
Yeah, for Fiddler.
Yeah, Fiddle will be devastated.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I was thinking like Hedge or Trots. I feel like Trots didn't get, even though Trots won the battle or the spar, whatever, duel, I feel like he didn't get as much of spotlight compared to a lot of his other bridge burner pals. So yeah, Trots.
If Blenda died, I would have been truly heartbroken.
Yeah,
Okay, that is something.
Luckily, she didn't. Yeah.
When I was reading the first half of this book, I was like, Blend, I get it, you know, but now I'm like, okay, I'm bummed.
Blend.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Livia Malazan Potato Noob asks for Panda and Yasna. In which of the next books do you think you will get to meet some of the characters from this one?
I mean, I anticipate like the next book will have some continuity of characters from this one.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Any characters in particular you think are gonna show up frequently?
My guess is Paran and Krupp and Cruel.
For the next book?
I actually have no idea what the premise of the next book is. All I know is that it's called House of Chains.
We know
So-
that the second half is a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is that for real?
Yeah, between King of House of Chains and the Queen of House of Chains. Which
No,
is
he's messing with
Bellicent
us
and
based on my
Calor.
predictions.
Okay, well, yeah, no, it technically, okay. It depends on whether you consider the first bedding to be part of the wedding or not. Because
Oh my god.
naturally, being part of the House of Chains, there's a lot of requisite rituals you have to observe.
All right,
I
all
think
right, all right.
That's book 4, and I think that counts. I was counting that.
I think that we'll see the imploded Tystedor in book 5. We'll see we'll see Paran at some point book 6 or later, not before that. We'll see Dujek, Tashrin, and Quickbin in House of Chains, possibly at the end and maybe too late to prevent tragedy. And we'll see Silver Fox. I don't know. Sometime after book 5, or possibly not even until Esselmon's books. Is that enough?
IDK. Very good enough. Yeah.
Those are my predictions.
Lady Sweden, will Paran and Race be best buds now? Please speculate.
No.
Race is not his personality is very much not conducive to any positive relationships.
I think they're gonna be frenemies.
Yes.
Okay, Lady Sweden, last question. We need an updated ranking for first 3 books from the panelists, please. Looking back on yourself before starting Gardens of the Moon, would you recommend the series to yourself, and how would you pitch it?
I would pitch it to myself the exact same way I pitched it in Malazan Why You Should Read It. And I put Gardens at the bottom, probably Memories of Ice at second, and Deadhouse Gates first.
That's also my ranking. Yes.
I would recommend it to myself, and I would just say stick with it, even when it seems difficult, because it's the best fantasy you'll ever read, and you'll never stop wanting to read it.
Also, it's not grimdark.
And I would, but there are grimdark elements. Anyway, God,
Sure.
rising to the bait. Ranking. I hate choosing between my beautiful children, but I think my favorite is Deadhouse Gates, followed by Gardens of the Moon, followed by Memories of Ice.
Beta.
How would I pitch this series? The first book is an appetizer. The second book is a very, very hearty soup. And the third one is the third one is just a whole platter of one of everything.
So much food it'll make you too full by the end.
And in terms of my ranking, I'm gonna go with the beginning of Gardens, the middle of Dead House Gates, and the ending of Memories of Ice.
You just like stitch together one Frankenstein
That
book. That's what you would
that
do.
is first place, and then everything else.
What's first place?
What I just said. Those three elements combined would be first place.
Oh, okay.
Those are her three favorite parts.
Yeah, although
Gotcha.
I'm really torn about the ending of Memories of Ice. Like, it's either the first the ending of Dead House Gates or the ending of Memories of Ice. I think for Memories of Ice, the lore part, like a bunch of lore that we got, is really cool. I really enjoyed that,
It
and
was really cool.
and I got to have more page time with the characters that I cared about, but I was very upset by the
And actually, I ranked it lower for like the opposite reason. I expected to be deeply emotionally affected on the level of Dead House Gates, and I just wasn't. So that's why I liked Memory of Ice the least of the three. But I still love it. I still loved it. I just didn't hit.
You
me
heard
the
it here.
same way.
Yasna hates this book.
Yeah.
No,
Send your hate mail.
I just wish that I was more torn apart. I wish my heart was broken more like it was in Dead House Gates.
Masochist.
Okay, so shall I call it?
Yes.
That concludes this episode. If you want to join the read along and or contribute listener questions, check us out on the Legendarium's Discord. You can find the link on thelegendarium.com. Also follow us on Twitter at Green Team Pod for updates and fun times. Shout out to Horizon Brave for starting it all. Check out the Legendarium podcast for Wheel of Time, Cosmere, Lord of the Ring content, and so much more. Thank you for our panelists, Ashaman, JasnahAsABoy, and BefuddledPanda. I am Hurinfan. Until next time.
See you later,
Pew, pew,
everybody.
pew.
See ya.
Pew, pew, pew.
Pew.
You're running Linux, nerd.
I am running Linux. Because it's better.